Okay, allegedly this is on. Let's see, I got to turn my echoing off. Okay, hopefully you can hear my mic. We're having a little bit of trouble yesterday, but this is Pipeline Audio for, I guess we're calling this dropping in at Pipeline Audio. And today, maybe somebody will join me, but it's mostly going to be a monologue. It's about a subject that I've been covering for a while over the last couple of years that I've been calling bringing the studio to the stage. Okay, thanks, Charles. So the basic idea here is to bring um, the guitar sounds that you have in your mixing chain in the studio onto the stage. And really, the trick about that is, a convenient way to do it, and to have the kind of switching power that you really need for live sounds. And in fact, maybe better switching than we've ever had live, and definitely, hopefully, a lot more and maybe better effects and routing than you would normally have gotten from the old pedal board with I mean, maybe with a Bradshaw board you could get close, but it's a pretty complicated setup here. So I wrote it. I have my website. There's the actual category called "Bringing the Studio to the Stage," and I guess I should say is mostly for guitar players. And the way I wrote it there was the idea and desire to bring every bit of processing power, DSP, routing philosophy, and switching functionality that we enjoy in the recording studio to our onstage guitar setups. And I guess a little bit of history here. A year or so ago, I've been kind of healthiest I've been since high school, and I got to the point where it really felt like I was well enough to go play in a band on stage. And so I was taking a look at the different modeling setups and things, and just how difficult would it be to bring the kind of sounds I was used to in the mixing world onto the stage. And man, it really didn't seem like it was really all that easy. There was a lot of problems with it. Um, the reliability of all these USB cables, a computer connectors, and just hoping it would go on. And that's even without getting into the latency issues. It just didn't seem like it was all that well thought out. But it also really felt similar to me to the situation we had before Reaper, with the existing digital audio workstations not really looking like they filled the workflow of a lot of traditional audio engineers. And so I really thought I could bring something to the table. And luckily, a lot of the companies involved were companies we've been dealing with since day one with Reaper. So I did have a lot of access and was able to talk to them. But I really didn't see from, I don't think any of them, a full comprehensive guitar to speaker uh, package, or even suggestions of what we should be using to make this stuff work. So I started putting some articles on my website, that's pipelineaudio.net, about this. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what it was that I found here. So I've further defined, kind of my goals as your ultimate signal chain you'd use on a mix without regard to processing power, latency, frequency range, and dynamic range response of the playback equipment or other limiting factors. And being able to switch between these sounds with no gaps, no dropouts, no glitches or delay. Controlling the internal parameters of these sounds in an intuitive way. And man, so like the auto engage of wahs and things like that. You'd be surprised how many of these live setups don't even have that. Hearing every dream rig you've ever even imagined available at the touch of a foot switch. And, you know, we can argue all day long whether people think that these amp modelers or whatever is as good as tube amps or things, but I don't really care what the topology is. If I like the sound, I like the sound. And this is probably a place where, the critical thinking and your logical fallacies really come into play. You're getting these old sunk cost fallacy. Yeah, you paid a bunch of money for this amp, so it's got to be better than anything else. A lot of confirmation bias where because you don't think modeling can be good, you're always going to hear it as bad. So, it's a good time to do some ABX testing. And being able to have both a perfect monitoring sound on stage as well as your ideal sound projected to the audience from the PA system. And okay, hold on. I'm going to invite Jason here. Okay, Jason, you're invited. We'll see if this actually works. Okay, so the one of the big parts of this, and seems like something that is so much shades of early Reaper. This is something the manufacturers just seem to not be getting. We have two paths that we kind of have to worry about on the guitar monitoring and stuff. Oops. Oh, why doesn't that work? Okay, sorry. Hold on. I'm just talking to JBM here. Okay, I have no idea why this invite isn't working. I clicked the invite thingy and send it to the email. And also posting the link didn't work. Yeah, Jason, this is a YouTube live. I mean, it's using Google Hangouts. It showed me that I sent a invitation to your email address. Yeah, I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to do here. Sorry. Okay, so okay, where was it? Okay, so the two path philosophy thing. You have two signals that you kind of need on stage. One, sorry. Yeah, technical difficulties. Okay, so back. You have your so if guitar players, you guys know this. Guitar speakers aren't full range. They're kind of mid range. The 12-inch. You usually don't have tweeters. And so when you're doing amp modeling and stuff, if you're going through a PA speaker or coming out the studio speakers, you'll be using some kind of speaker simulator, cabinet emulator. Lots of times we're doing this with impulse responses. And so that's the signal that the PA system needs. But a guitar amp, you don't want to put a guitar amp on a guitar amp. I mean, you don't want to put a speaker simulator on a 12-inch speaker that sounds the way it's supposed to in the first place. So if you're going to a regular guitar amp or if you're going to a regular 412 speaker cabinet type of thing, you don't want a speaker simulator on there. So you need both. You need a signal coming out that's for the PA, for the recording system, that's full range. And nowadays you hear a lot of talk about the FR cabinets, full range flat response, and you can really get these things cheap now as well. And then you need another signal for your regular speaker. One's got a speaker simulator on it, one doesn't. And just going through the entire market, the number of devices that can actually do this sensibly and we're kind of had that thought out from the beginning It's actually pretty rare. Uh, as disturbing, but a lot of them you can wiggle your way around it. There's you can make dual paths. Um, some of them like Helix, you could actually put the speaker in one path and not a speaker simulator in the other path. Oh, weird. Okay, why is this not working? I don't, Jason. I'm not sure if that's the. It should go right to your email or something, or maybe your YouTube. I don't know. I'm using the YouTube Google Hangout thing, and it says invite people, and then send invite as Pipeline Audio. Put your email name in there, and that's how that worked. And then the other one was just said to directly invite, which is that one. So, and if that don't work, man, we got to figure this out somehow. Okay, so for the other things, I really detailed a lot of this on my website, just from start to finish. Your One of the things I really want to take advantage of is nowadays we can do pretty much everything wirelessly, right? So I wanted a wireless guitar to interface, hopefully a wireless pedal board, and I actually made one article that showed kind of a one cable setup with iOS, uh, and that was a self-powered full range flat response speaker, iPad with the iPad holder that I glued onto the speaker. I glued a direct box onto the speaker and made a two-path setup with the speaker emulator on one end and no speaker on the other, and made a battery-powered wireless Behringer FCB 1010. And I have a couple articles about that on my website as well. And so, really, you could make this whole setup, but I'm still a little bit scary. Like, the whole computer thing. I mean, this is an iPad this time, but either way, it's scary if something's going to go bad on you. It's kind of a lot to make sure that it's firing up and hoping. So I was trying some of the standalone, like the pedal board styles that Line 6 makes, and in general, those kind of work, but they also have the same problems. The Firehawk that I was trying didn't really have an easy way of sending speaker cabinet and no speaker cabinet emulation to the outputs, as well as some other silly problems. Okay, so I want to. Sorry, still trying to get JBM in here, but can't really figure it out. If anybody knows why my invites aren't working to him, just let me know. Okay, so I really had a lot of stuff to go through here, but I just wanted to have it make sure that we understand the basic philosophy of what it was I'm trying to do. So every time that I mention this, somebody's like, "What do you mean bringing the studio to the stage?" This is kind of what I'm trying to do. And let's see if I can gather my thoughts. So I'll pull up one of my articles and just kind of get you there. So I really did a deep dive into the interfaces that are available, and I actually wrote some really extensive stuff on what we got. Uh, Most of them, the latency's not so good, at least for the iOS stuff. I think it was somewhere around 20 milliseconds round trip latency was about as low as I could get. And a lot of them had kind of weak output levels. Some of them were mono only for the output. So, you wouldn't be able to have that two path. And in general, a lot of the stuff was kind of scary on little thin cables, and you're just worried if whether or not it's going to break. But there were some good things. Sonoma Wireworks came out with two products: a Studio Jack Mini and Guitar Jack stage that really seem targeted at this market. One of them has MIDI switches and knobs and pretty handy stuff on it. But if you're going with iOS, it's kind of limited and sketchy, but at the same time, it's kind of plug and play. Whereas if you're going with the computer setup, you use any interface you want, but making a small enough setup that's reliable and hopefully you don't have to plug in too many cables when you get to the stage. That's a whole nother tricky thing. I mean, it really feels like uncharted territory, and I would check Google Images for what people were actually doing, and for the most part, you would see all these uh, ads and marketing where they showed the stuff in use, but usually it was sitting on a desktop, and you really don't see much of it on stage. And I actually went and guinea pigged the iOS setup on stage, and actually went okay. But it's kind of scary, and luckily we only had 3 songs, so my band wasn't going to kill me if I really messed it up. But I would love to see more kind of guaranteed working setups out there with the computer or the iOS stuff. Um, so I do have a round trip latency roundup on the music school's website that shows a lot of these interfaces, at least on the computer end. And so let's see the next thing. I did try a lot of different types of computers, laptops, little microcomputers, and the convertibles and tablets, which ended up actually being about as convenient as the iOS stuff and much more configurable. And I think I tortured a lot of you over the last year with a lot of scripting and plugins and stuff that we were doing on the Reaper forum and over the Reaper users group on Facebook and at some of the guitar forums. SWS Live for extension for Reaper really lets you kind of make your own pedal boards and things. And let's see, Michael Schnell and LB0, I think, Adam Lovat, and there was a couple other people, or really Daniel Perry, really made a lot of plugins and scripts that really turned Reaper into a really, really, really good live pedal board and really lets you switch to your heart's content between, completely different sounds. Really amazing. But I should talk about, there is a standalone. I know there's a couple standalones, but there's one that really was well tailored to this, and that's called Gig Performer. And it's like a VST host that lets you really intuitively draw connections between VST plugins and the routing, and then switch between them. That's something you should check out if you're really into this stuff. And for the switching systems, I've got a bunch of videos up on Instagram and on my website and stuff of trying different types of pedal boards and things. And like I said earlier, making the wireless battery powered FCB 1010, which as old as those things are, it's still a really good pedal board to me. I don't know that there's anything newer that's better for exactly what I was trying to do. I would like it if it was battery powered internally and if it had a USB connector on it internally, but these are all things you can add. And I'm hoping, we're seeing this year that some really amazing things are coming out. I know Overloud just announced their TH3 update. That's THU, maybe TH Unlimited or something. And that's looking really good. A lot of the problems I was having that I described in my articles were addressed. And over the last year, I have been talking to Positive Grid a lot, and I kind of wrote them it's a pretty long manifesto of everything that I saw, but from the data I've collected from users and what people really wanted to see on stage. And I gave them a pretty comprehensive checklist, and hopefully we're going to be seeing some of that stuff coming up. I really Yeah, I know everybody's got their own opinions on these things. I really do like the sound of bias amps. I really like them. For the cleans, I don't know. I usually do other tricks like Ken McLaren's pickup replacer thing. Make a acoustic simulator out of that. I really like for the cleans, but I love the bias amp sounds. But I should also talk about Revolver, which is funny because you guys old Reaper OG, uh, PV, I think was the first company that licensed Reaper for their products. And at the first NAMM show that me and Justin and Christoph went to after Reaper was released, we walk in and there's this giant screen display with Reaper on it, and it was PV showing Revolver on there. And at the time there really wasn't much. Amplitude, I think, had come out, and they were kind of showing on the trade show floor that people are playing amplifiers through their iPhones, which was incredible. But Revolver was also showing, like, you're supposed to be using this in real time, and this is just as ASIO drivers are getting powerful enough that we can actually monitor through stuff. And yeah, latency purists, I know it's never low enough, but it was below the 10 millisecond thing. So for the us sane people, yeah, that seemed okay for us. And Revolver really had a lot of stuff that was really ahead of time. And that was, I think that was 2007, 2008, maybe. And so here it is 10 years later. And I wrote to PV. I'm like, hey, I've been working on this, bringing the studio to the stage stuff over the last year. And, I would love to see this, and that in Revolver. And it was mostly things about switching, how it's being able to switch fast enough that you didn't wait for these dropouts and things like most of these, even the hardware pedal boards had for the most part. It wasn't very nice switching. And lo and behold, I didn't know, but for the past 10 years inside Revolver, there was this gig mode, and it had all this stuff. I mean, the switching was instant. I think it cached a bank of 8 sounds, and it was missing a little bit of stuff that I would have liked to see. Again, auto engage for the wah-wah, of course. I don't think it moves MIDI around internally, which would really help. A tap tempo for the master setting, I think, was another one. And but it didn't come with its own harmonizer, but it allowed VST, hosting of third-party VSTs, I think, even in standalone, which is pretty incredible. So you should be able to build a pretty good setup around Revolver, given those limitations. And here I go giving another list to a company. Hopefully, if you guys end up actually putting all that stuff together, and it wasn't stuff that you just thought of, obviously, then a thank you would be nice. But you guys are always really good to us Reaper users anyway, so thank you. But anyway, I think that's really the basics of bringing the studio to the stage. So next time I bring it up, hopefully you know what I'm talking about, and so it doesn't just sound like I'm calling up some esoteric nonsense that's completely unhelpful. Really, I'll put in the descriptions. The categories for this on my website really go into it a lot, and I do go into a real detail about the interfaces out there, and making some of these switching systems, and a lot of things that I did find, and hopefully some convenient ways of making this work. And if you know anybody who has a very convenient computer-based, not the iOS so much, but a computer-based way of carrying this stuff around on stage, I'd really like to see it, and hopefully I'd like to get you on here. But for now, I don't want to end up rambling, and I didn't script this at all. But hopefully the basics of what I'm talking about got out there. And so I will see you guys next time. And tell your friends about this series, and hopefully get my subscribers over 1,000. That would be awesome. And I'll talk to you guys later. So thanks for tuning in to Dropping In at Pipeline Audio.